I'm going to work through the algebra questions that you did in your previous lesson. As I work through it, you're going to green pen your own work. That means you're either going to mark it as correct or you're going to copy the full working that leads to the correct answer. If you need longer to write, please ask the teacher to pause the video. At the end of the lesson you'll hand this in and I will look at it to set you some targets and some homework. The first question, the answer is 4m. Because all of these terms are m, you can just deal with the numbers, and remember that if an m is on its own, it has a 1 next to it. So effectively you're doing 3 minus 1 minus 1 plus 3. So 3 minus 1 is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1, and 1 plus 3 equals 4, which is where you get the 4m. The next question, the correct answer is 8np, or they will accept 8pn. Generally, we write our letters in alphabetical order, so this would be LMNOP. The way we get to this answer is we deal with the numbers first and then the letters. So the calculation for this was 2 times 4 and then n times p, which gives you 8 here and then NP. Question 2, part A. It's just going to be 3x plus 2y. These are all positive and you just count them up. There's 3x there and there's 2y there. And the question below is going to be 6q minus p. Now when you do this one you need to take into account the sign that is in front of each of the terms. I've just realised I've done that wrong. This is a q. Let me work through it. So this isn't that, it is going to be 2p plus 3q. I misread it. Okay, the 2p comes from this. You've got 3p there and you've got a p there. So the calculation to get the p term is 3p minus p. Remember that's 1p, and that gives you the 2p there. The q terms are from this, 7q minus 4q, which you can see gives you that positive 3q. Part C of this question, you should have 12m minus 18. And this comes from doing 6 times 2m, which you can see has given you the 12m, and then 6 times minus 3, which gives you the minus 18. And the last part of this question, D, we are solving. We've got our question here. We need some working in the middle and then an answer. So our working in the middle is going to be 7f equals 21. And the reason for that is because we have taken away 6. And that's how we undo the plus 6 there. And then we find f by doing 21 divided by 7, meaning that f equals 3. For question 3, again we're collecting terms, so I'm going to collect my x terms together. So 4x plus 3x is going to give me 7x. And then my y terms are minus 2y minus 6y. So remember that that means that you are at minus 2 and you are taking away another 6, and that will give you minus 8y. And the next question is another expansion. The answer should be 6x minus 2x squared, and that comes from doing 2x times 3, which gives you the 6x, and then 2x times minus x. Now the x times x gives you the x squared, and then you've got 2 times what effectively is minus 1x, and 2 times minus 1 would give you that minus 2. And the last question on this page is question 4, where we're being asked to expand and simplify. Now when you have 2 sets of brackets, you need to deal with them separately, and I've taught you to draw a box around the first one and then a box around the second one, so you take into account the signs. So this question was a bit tricky because of that. So the first expansion, you're going to do 5 times p and then 5 times 3, which will give you 5p plus 15. The second expansion, you're going to do minus 2 times 1, which is minus 2, but then you're doing minus 2 times minus 2p. Now when we multiply and divide, if both of our numbers are negative, we do get a positive answer. So this is going to become a positive 4p. So down here it would become plus 4p. Now then we still need to collect our terms, so I'm going to collect the terms for the p. So 5p plus 4p equals 9p, and then I'm left with 15 minus 2, which is 13, giving us an answer of 9p plus 13. Okay, on to question 5. Question 5 is on substitution. We are asked to work out the value of p when we've been given values of x and y. So we know we need to do 4 times x, and that x is 5. So I'm going to do 4 times 5, and that is 20. Then I'm going to add to that 3 times y. Y is minus 2. So 3 times minus 2. Now I've just said that if both of these are negative, we would get a positive answer. However, if we're multiplying and one's negative and one is positive, then we get a negative answer of minus 6. And if we add these together, the fact that this is negative will affect that, and we will be doing 20 minus 6. So our answer is 14. For part B, we're doing another expansion. Remember, you times the first term and then the second. Your answer should be 4e squared plus 8e, and it comes from doing 4e times e, which is where your e squared comes from, and then 4e times 2, you get the 8 and just leave the e on the end. Next question is a solving question, and I've told you to do this in 2 different ways. So you can either expand the bracket, which would give you 3m minus 12 equals 21. Your next line of working would be 3m equals 33, because we would add that 12, and then you get to an answer of m equals 11. Or alternatively, you could have covered up that answer and worked out what does that part equal. So m minus 4, if 3 times whatever that is equals 21, must equal 7, and then m is going to equal 11, because we would add 4 to undo that. So the answer is 11. Question 6 is another substitution question. So we're given a value of g of 9 and a value of h of 4. So we are going to work out 2g plus 3h, so that's going to be 2 times 9, which is 18, and then 3 times 4, which is 12, and we're going to add those together, getting an answer of 30. Question 7. we're given a table of values. Again, what we're doing here is initially for this part we're going to substitute, and for this one we're actually going to have to undo what has happened up here. So this means 3 times that number and add 2, so 3 times 12 is 36, and 36 plus 2 is 38, which I'm going to write in there. Now if I want to undo this, I have to undo what's happening up there. So I'm going to do 47 minus 2 to undo that plus, which gives me 45. And then this was times by 3, so I need to work out what I've times by 3 to get that, and I'll do that by dividing it, and I get the answer of 15. Now you may have used trial and improvement, so you may have just tried taking 13, 14, 15 to get to that answer, and that's perfectly fine. Question 8 is a number machine. We haven't done these recently, but you should recognise them from when you've seen them in the past. So if we're trying to work out the output, it's what comes out when we put the number 4 in. So if I put 4 in and times it by 3, I'm going to get 12, and then if I minus 4, I'm going to get 8. So the output would be 8. And if we're told that the output is 11, we need to work backwards. I'll do it up here so it makes more sense. So if I'm going backwards, I put the 11 in. You have to do the opposite if you're going in the opposite direction. So I'm going to add 4, which will give me 15. And then I'm going to divide by 3. So 15 divided by 3 will give me a 5. So it was a 5 that went in. And you can always check that by putting it back in. So 5 times 3 is 15, and 15 minus 4 is the 11. For part C, it says show that there is a value for the input where the input and the output are the same. So that's what it's looking for, and really it's a matter of putting them through. So you know that they're going in, you've got to times them by 3 and take away 4 and see what comes out. So you can try different numbers. So if I put in a 1, times it by 3 is 3, take away 4 is minus 1, so it's not that one. If I put in a 2, 2 times 3 is 6, take away 4 is 2. So actually it is 2 where you get the same value. So you can show that by doing 2 times 3 equals 6, 6 minus 4 equals 2. Okay, we're on to question 9. So question 9 tells us to solve this. We can't solve it until we've collected these terms here. So these terms are going to become, well, there's 3 of them, so we're going to have 3x equals 51. That means that x is going to be 51 divided by 3. Now if you can't do that in your head, you should use a bus shelter. This wasn't calculator work, so I'm going to put the 51 in there and the 3 there. There is 1 3 in 5, and I'm going to carry a 2, and there are 7 3s in 21, so my answer is 17. For the next question, probably the easiest way to work this one out is to think, what would you divide by 4 to get to the answer 3? Or you can unpick it by undoing that division by 4 and timesing this side by 4. The answer is 12. And you can check that because 12 divided by 4 is 3, and 4 times 3 is 12. And part C of this question, we've got 2f plus 7 equals 18. So my next line of working, I've got my question. Remember we were looking for question, working, answer. My next line of working is going to be 2f equals 11. And that's because I've subtracted 7 because this was being added, and then f is going to be 11 divided by 2. It's not a whole number answer, this one, it's going to be 5.5. For question 10, again we're solving. So we've got our question there. We are going to show a line of working. So I'm going to have 4c equals 6, and the reason for that was a plus 5, so I'm going to take away 5, and 11 minus 5 is 6. And then to find c, I'm going to do 6 divided by 4. Remember, the easy way to divide by 4 is to halve it and halve it. I'm going to write that there because I know that sometimes you need to be reminded of that. Halve it and halve it to divide by 4. So half of 6 is 3, and half of 3 is 1.5, and that's our answer. Okay, for part B, again you can choose whether or not you want to multiply this out or just cover up the bracket and work out this part. So it's probably quicker covering the bracket. Our next line of working would be e plus 7 equals, and you get your answer to that by either working out what you times 5 by to get 20, or by dividing 20 by 5. Now 5 times 4 is 20, so I know that this is going to be 4. At this point you can either subtract 7, it's probably the easiest way to do it. Remember that that's going to take you into a negative, so you're at 4, you take away 7, you get an answer of minus 3. So e is minus 3. You can do it by expanding the bracket, so if you chose to do it that way, your work would look like this. 5e plus 35 equals 20. Your next line of working would be 5e equals minus 15. Remember that you are going to take away 35 from that 20, and then e is going to equal minus 15 divided by 3, and because 1 divided by 5 even, because that was a 5, and because 1 is positive and 1 is negative, you get the answer of minus 3. So regardless of which way you do the working, you will still get to the same solution. Okay, the next one is an indices one. We haven't particularly done any indices this term, but we did do it just before we broke up for the summer. When this is in a bracket, it basically means that you're doing m to the power of 3 and you're squaring it, so you would times it by itself. And when you do that, you add the indices. So you either use the rule that when it's in brackets, you do m3 times 2, or you write it out like this and then do m3 plus 3. The answer is the same, m to the power of 6. For question 11, we now have a double-sided equation. So remember, I want to get my x terms together. So I'm going to do that by subtracting this one. Remember, there's one of them. So I'm going to take away 1x. Now that is going to leave me with 3x plus 5, because that will just drop down, and that is going to equal 26, because that would just drop down. So we're now back to a normal equation that you're quite familiar with. So my next line of working, I'm going to undo this plus 5 by taking it away. So 3x will equal 21, and x will equal 21 divided by 3, which is 7. Okay, question 12. We've got another double-sided equation. This time my x is negative, so just be careful, because when I move that, it is going to be added. So my first line of working will become 5x plus 3, remember that just drops down, equals, and I've sort of drawn over it, but that is going to equal 7. So 5x plus 3 equals 7. I then undo the plus 3 by subtracting 3, so I get 5x equals 4. Now be careful with this, make sure you get your division right at this point. So x equals 4 divided by 5. Now they haven't asked us to write the answer in any particular way, so it's perfectly fine to give your answer as 4/5. If you wanted to convert it into a decimal, probably the easiest thing to do is find the decimal equivalent of this. If you know your fifths, you'll know that each fifth is worth 0.2. You could just times it by 4, or you could find an equivalent fraction over 10. So I've doubled the top and the bottom, and hopefully you'll realise that 8 divided by 10 is 0.8. Either answer is acceptable. And for question 13, again we've got a double-sided equation, and this time we've also got a bracket on one side. So the first thing we're going to do is expand those brackets. So I'm going to have 5x minus 6 on this side, and when I expand this one, 3 times x will give me 3x, and 3 times minus 1 will give me minus 3. So now I've got an equation that I can start working with. I want to deal with this 3x. Note that this is minus 3 and we need to make sure it stays as a minus 3. So I'm going to take it away from this side, which will give me 2x. That drops down, minus 6 equals, and then minus 3 also drops down. For the next line of working, we're going to undo this minus 6 by adding 6, which means that 2x equals 3, and x equals 3 divided by 2, and you should be able to work that one out. It's going to be half of 3 is 1.5. So in question 14 we start looking at algebra coming into this. So we're actually just looking for a formula here. We've been told that there's 5 rods. We know that the total length of the rods is L, and if we're looking for a formula, basically what we're doing is we're creating an equation, but instead of the answer being a number, the answer will be L. So what we need is an expression for each of these lengths. So what I'm going to do is add those up. A minus 1 plus A plus A plus A plus A plus 4. And you might want to just double check that you've got all of them. So I've got that one, I've got that one, I've got that one, I've got that one, and then I've got the A plus 4, so that I know I've got all of those terms. So then you want to collect everything up. So I've got an A there, and all of these are pluses. So if I look at that, that is going to give me 5A. And if I look at the numbers, remember to take account of the signs. I've got minus 1 and a plus 4, so I can either do minus 1 plus 4, or I can do 4 minus 1. And my answer is going to be plus 3. So I've collected those terms to create a formula. Because we know the total length is L, I know that this is going to equal L. You could write it the other way around, so you could write L equals 5A plus 3. Either is acceptable. And question 15, again we are creating an equation with what we know about this shape. So things that you should know: angles around a point add up to 360 degrees. So when we are looking for an equation, that is the equal sign and what it will equal. You also need to know things like what this symbol means. So we know that that symbol means it's a right angle, and right angles measure 90 degrees. Now I can try and create an equation. So if I look at all of the angles that go around this point, I've got 3x and 5x and 90. So that's 3x plus 2x plus 90, and I know that that will equal 360. I'm going to tidy up this expression because I've got a 3x and a 2x. So if I put these two together, I've got 5x plus 90 equals 360. And then I can start solving it. So the first thing I'm going to do is undo this adding 90 by taking it away. So I'm going to get 5x equals 270. And my answer is going to come by doing 270 divided by 5. Now again, if you can't do this in your head, that's fine. You just need to do it as a bus shelter. So the 270 goes inside, the 5 goes on the outside. There's no 5s in 2, so how many 5s in 27? Well, 5 5s are 25, which gives me a remainder of 2. And how many 5s are in 20? 4. So the value of x is 54. Okay, last two questions then. So question 16. There's some important words in this one because actually they're talking about a square at the start of the question, but you haven't been given a square. So things that are important, we've got the word perimeter, not area, perimeter. That are all the lengths added up together. And you're told that the perimeter of a square that they haven't given us has the same length as the perimeter of this triangle. What does the same mean in maths? Well, it means equal. So that is a hint as to an equation and how you might construct it. Now you get marks for this for coming up with different things. So we know that we're looking for a perimeter, and we would find a perimeter by adding all of the side lengths together. So that's this and this and this. So I'm going to add up 2x plus 3 plus 5x plus 3 plus 5x minus 2. The x terms are straightforward. I've got 2x plus 5x plus 5x. It's going to give me 12x. And then I've got 3 plus 3, which is 6. And then when I take away 2, I get 4. So it's 12x plus 4. Now this has given me the perimeter for that triangle. Now if we're told that that also equals the full perimeter of a square, so here's a square, and what we know about a square is it has 4 equal sides. So if this is the same as the perimeter of that square, I can find the side length by dividing this by 4. So if I do that, I'm going to basically do 12x plus 4 divided by 4. How many 4's in 12? There's 3, which gives me 3x. And how many 4's in 4? There's 1. Now you can check this answer, because if you go back and put 3x plus 1 around the sides of the square, you can see that they would add up to 12x plus 4, which is the same as the perimeter. And the final question. So there's two rectangles here. You're told measurements are in centimetres, which is a clue to what your unit should be for your answer, although in this case they have given you those on the answer line. It tells you that the area of this rectangle is equal to the area of that one. Now the fact it's equal means that will help us create an equation. You're then asked to work out the perimeter of rectangle B. Now we can't find the perimeter of rectangle B until we know a value for x, and we need to create an equation to find that. So the fact that these two are equal will help us. So we're going to start off coming up with expressions for the area of each triangle. So the area of triangle A is going to be length times width, so the area is going to equal 2.5 times 4x, and that comes out as 10x. the area of this shape is going to be, we're going to need brackets, we're going to have 7 and 2x minus 3. And if I expand that bracket, I get 14x minus 21. So I'm going to create an equation. Because I have a larger number of x's in this expression, I'm going to write this one first. But I know that this equals the same as that because they've told us that the area of those two rectangles are the same. So my equation is going to be 14x minus 21 equals 10x. Now I need to take this one away from here, so I'm going to minus 10x from there. So initially I'm going to have an equation that is 4x, this drops down, minus 21, and of course when I take that 10x away from there I'm left with 0. But don't panic, because in the next line of working we are going to be adding 21. So 4x, this is 20, we're going to add 21 here. 4x equals a positive 21, and then x is going to equal 21 divided by 4. Now remember, you can either do a bus shelter for this, or you can halve it and halve it again. It's really up to you. I'm going to show you what the bus shelter would look like. You might want to do it as money because it's easier if you want to divide it in your head, and I know that this is going to go into decimals. You can always add this point and zeros as and when you need it. So how many 4s are in 2? None. How many 4s are in 21? That is 5, and we have a remainder of 1. You then do how many 4s are in 10? Well, there's 2. 2 4s are 8, so there's a remainder of 2. And how many 4s are in 20? There's 5. So the value of x is 5.25. Now you could have done that by halving it and halving it. So 21 divided by 2 is 10.5, and 10.5 divided by 2 is 5.25. And it's why you might want to think of it as money, because if you're doing that sort of method it's easier to divide them. So now we know a value of x, we can work out a perimeter of rectangle B because it helps us find the actual side length that we don't currently know. So we're going to use this 5.25 and go back to this shape. So I know that x is 5.25. I know that this side length is 2x minus 3. So I am going to calculate 2 times 5.25 and then take away 3. If I double 5.25 I get 10.5. And if I take away 3, I get 7.5. So I know that this side length is 7.5. I know that the one opposite is 7.5 because opposite sides in a rectangle are equal. And I know the one opposite this is 7. So to find the perimeter of rectangle B, I now just need to add up those values. So I am going to add 7 plus 7 plus 7.5 plus 7.5, and if I do that, that gives me 14, that gives me 15, and if I add them together I get 29. So the perimeter of shape B is 29 centimetres. Okay, hopefully you've had enough time to green pen everything. Remember that when I said we were green penning it, it means that you've either marked it as correct or you've copied the full working to the correct answer, and you should have done that using a green pen. Can you now make sure that your name is on the front of the paper, and you will need to give it to your teacher. I'll see you in your next lesson. Bye.